Today's episode contains conversations surrounding childhood cancer and the loss of a child. Listener discretion is advised. Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. For a long time, I suffered with depression and anxiety. I had tried therapy before, but struggled finding a therapist I connected with until I found BetterHelp. That's why I am so excited to share BetterHelp's mission to make therapy more affordable and more accessible, because finding a therapist can be hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online. Remote therapy sessions, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. Click the link in description and receive 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. And by clicking that link, you support this channel. Plus, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. I was struggling for a long time, and BetterHelp was where I found my therapist, Whitney, who I still see weekly for almost 2 years now. So, if you're struggling like I was, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in description or go to betterhelp.com/altereagle. That's betterhelp.com/altereagle. There's no better time than now to start your mental health journey. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for supporting this channel. Welcome to another episode of Alter Eagle. I'm your host, Laura Crago. Thank you for joining me today. As you did hear, there was a disclaimer. The conversation I'm having today is with Nikki Zablocki. Nikki is a local woman who came in to sit down and speak about her son, Wesley. Wesley was 11 years old when he passed away from osteosarcoma. He battled since the age of 7. It's never an easy thing to talk about, but why I felt that it was necessary was because September is Childhood Cancer Awareness with Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation. It's their big month for fundraising. I had Larry Vincent on the podcast, and I put out onto social media, is there anyone out there that wants to share their story? Because we talk about human connection on this podcast. We talk about mental health, and we all are affected by something that affects our mental health, that affects our overall well-being. And unfortunately, we live in a world where childhood cancer is a thing. If any of us could change that, obviously we would. And there are so many warriors out there that are fighting that. The people who have backed up the family through Cure Search, which I am going to include the links to all of these organizations in the caption, but Cure Search was the organization that Nikki and her family became involved with. And they became involved before Wesley passed away. They started Wesley's Warriors. So they do an ultimate hike at the beginning of May. And they're kind of all over, but they did one in the Shenandoah Valley. And to this day, they have raised a total of $300,000 for cancer research. So I want you to check out Cure Search. I want you to also check out Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation. And I want you to prepare yourself for Nikki's story. She's like a lot of parents out there who have either struggled with their children battling cancer or have lost a child to cancer. There's nothing fair about it. There's nothing about it that, we had the conversation about, we go through these things in life. And I often wonder, when you go through something really terrible, what's the lesson here? Like, could I have learned the lesson? And she said this, could I have learned the lesson without having to go through this awful thing? We talk about the language behind when someone passes away from cancer and how powerful that is. Our words are so powerful, how we say them and what words we say. Sometimes I think I overanalyze what I say, how I say it. And I know that the inner dancer in me definitely comes out, especially if I'm doing anything to do with theater. I definitely get very particular. That's the word I'm looking for. I get very, very particular. But I'm really honored that Nikki came in today because something that she said to me at the end was, thank you for letting me talk about Wesley. We have to keep the children who pass away, and we said pass away from cancer. You know, they fight. He fought so hard. He fought so hard. And that's just a lot of the outcomes for a lot of people is that they fight so hard, and the cancer, it's just too much. You know, I want to send love to his family. I want to send love to any parent out there who is going through this, any family member, a sibling, or the patients that are going through this. You're not alone. There are so many people in this world who step up when it comes to disease and struggling and fighting and researching and raising funds. So I just want to give a shout out to all the warriors that are out there that are fighting, and to the people that are on the path of research. And I'm hoping to speak to some of those people during these next couple weeks. And just take some time before you listen to this episode to just think about what it is you're grateful for in your life. What it is that you cherish every single day when you wake up with air in your lungs and with a heartbeat. Because when it comes down to hearing these stories, those are the things that we need to be reminded of. We need to be reminded of being grateful for the life that we have, that we're living, and making sure that we are living it to the fullest. So again, without further ado, Nikki Zablocki, please take note that this conversation does involve child loss and childhood cancer. I'm very much like, I take people for where they are. Like, I meet them where they're at, and I make mistakes too. And I am always one of those people who's like, we're human, right? Like, we are human. And it's like, especially with what we're, discussing today, people try their best to do whatever they think's right in a certain situation. I know I'd shared with you, like, someone had said to me, my dad's viewing, and I was a kid, so I didn't understand. I couldn't process it where I can now, but often in situations of, loss or a really tough subject matter, it's hard because you don't know what to say, and sometimes saying nothing and just showing up, right?
Yep.
I know coming here today is probably not easy, but I'm really grateful that we're meeting. And I was thinking on my way in this morning about how you talked about the organization Cure Search.
Yes.
They do the ultimate hike, and how you've done that. Would you say you've done that since Wesley passed in 2015?
Yep. Well, we started in 2013. That was our first time he was still here. So
Okay.
we heard about the organization from another cancer mom, and just thought it would be something nice to do.
Yeah. So today I'm sitting down with Nikki Zablocki. I said that right? Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
Nikki and I were connected through my friend Matt Menchek, who I went to high school with.
Okay.
And, I'd put something out on social media because I've been pretty fortunate since I've got here and started the podcast, getting guests and talking about subject matters. And I've had some people that have backed out because it was just too much.
Yeah.
And I understand that. That's fine. And maybe someday they'll want to talk. But it can be hard, but also I think it's really, first of all, it's really brave of you to come here and talk to me, because I know you said that this is your first time probably speaking into a microphone like this, right? Wearing the headphones and stuff. And I have had individuals come in here and they see like the lights, like I have 2 ring lights and then I have LEDs along the floor, and that's it. And then my little good vibes only thing. But it can be hard. You come in and you see like there's a teeny tiny camera, but there's lights and there's a microphone. And I just want you to, it's just you and I talking. We're going to talk about Wesley today. Or did you say Butta?
Butta. Buddy, Butta.
Buddy, Butta.
Chuck.
Chuck. I love that you said your husband used to call him Chuck.
Yeah.
I think that's hilarious. We all get those names, right? Just from funny situations. You said nothing in particular happened. He just started calling him Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. And he was Wesley Wesley to you or Butta. So tell our listeners, first of all, tell me a little bit about you. I want to know a little bit about you. And
so I've lived in Butler my whole life. Went to Butler High School. Went to Penn State Barron for college. 4 years, graduated from there with my bachelor's. Met my husband in 93. That same year I graduated. We both worked at Oberg Industries. We were married in 97. I currently work at Matthews International in East Butler, what's actually SGK. I do software development.
cool.
Mostly SQL code writing, database management, things like that.
You should be wicked smart to do that.
I'm kind of smart.
Yeah,
I'm smart in that sense.
Yeah. No, I think that's not easy. That's not easy. So
No, I do like it.
yeah,
So
that's important.
Yeah, so we had Wesley with our daughter Zoe in 2000. She's a 2000 baby, so that's nice. We know she's 24 this year. We never forget how old she is.
Yeah, that helps. That definitely helps. Yeah.
And she currently lives in Florida after graduating with her master's in child life. So she's a child life specialist at Tallahassee Memorial Hospital.
Wow. So what does tell me a little bit about what child life means. Like, what does she do on a daily basis, I guess?
So she works in a hospital. You mostly see them at children's hospitals. Hers is just like a Butler Memorial. So she has a couple floors, and anytime children come in, she'll be notified. And she just, they'll go to procedures with them to help them understand what's happening to them. They will visit them in their rooms, bring them games, if anything they need to keep them busy. Other programs they'll do, they'll raise money for keeping the playroom stocked, or I know she's gone shopping a few times for just to keep this closet full of like clothes and snacks and things like that. Because sometimes maybe a kid has an accident, comes in and they cut all their clothes off, right? So she'll have a closet full of clothes.
Yeah.
It's things you wouldn't think of, But yeah, so she loves it. And she is basically running the program there. They didn't have one previous to her. I think at COVID time, it kind of went along the wayside. And then once things ramped back up, they needed somebody. So it's pretty nice for her first experience.
Yeah, out of school. That's rare to have a position that you can sort of be leading, but that's exciting for her.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about that. I mean, you hear of people who come and meet children when they're having surgeries and different things like that, but that's really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. My thought is, like, do you think that perhaps she went into something like that because of her brother?
Absolutely. Yeah, because we didn't know.
I'm probably going to cry just to let you know, because as I'm sitting here looking at you, and you have such an amazing smile and like a really happy energy, and you sent me pictures of Wesley, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. So okay.
So we should get you the tissue box.
No, I'll go get it. I'll go get it here in a minute. But just, that's just, you're talking about what she's doing, and I'm like, I have a feeling that she went into that because of Wesley.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, he had an amazing child life specialist. That was the first person he would ask for anytime he was going into the hospital. So, yeah, he definitely had an impact on her.
And I remember you were speaking, was it the child life specialist or was it the doctor? Was there a doctor too who you spoke with, and you and your husband always were like, we need to talk to, what was his, you can just say his first name?
Yeah, Dr. Kurt Weiss.
Yeah.
He was, he was our initial.
At Children's, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He never was the treatment doctor or anything like that. He's an osteo.
Sarcoma.
No.
Oh, I know.
Like he would do surgery on legs, and I forget the word.
Yeah, and I know what you're talking about.
Anyway.
Yes.
So he didn't do oncology, but he was involved somehow.
Okay.
And he had osteosarcoma himself when he was younger. So
that's right.
Why we were like, okay, you know what's happening. We don't want to talk to anybody else until we know what's going on.
Yeah. Yes. So I know Wesley, he had a 4-year battle, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So did you say how old was he again when he was?
He was 7.
7.
March 27th of 2011. He would have been 8 in May. So he was almost 8.
Okay.
and then passed away March 3rd, 2015. So it was almost exactly 4 years.
Almost exactly 4 years. And, question I had asked you was, when you initially left and found out, and this was something that happened from a fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, went to the hospital, and then they noticed something and sort of sent you. And at first, I think the MRI was delayed, and the doctor was the one that was like, no, this isn't okay. Like, this needs to happen sooner.
Yep.
And how grateful you were for that, for having that advocate. Because that can be hard,
right?
Of course. Because there's a lot of people out there, right, that need, but to have him advocating, saying, no, we need to get this MRI now. Yeah. Something is going on. And when you left with the diagnosis, and it was osteosarcoma, correct?
Yep.
Is there a stage with that? No. It's just.
Yeah. And we even asked, like, was it found early? And they don't know, because they don't have a previous x-ray to see if a year ago it was there or not, do you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. We weren't sure. We felt like, and the prognosis was good.
Yeah, so you initially did leave there with this hope, like, okay, we know what it is. We know how to treat it. This is going to be great.
We were told it's curable as well. Obviously, the doctor talking to us was cured of it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, something that we sort of got into a little bit was talking about, when you go through something like this spiritually, it can really make or break, where you are in that. And I think that you and I are on the same sort of wavelength with that, where there's a little bit of a disconnect when we come to, especially when we're talking about children. Mm-hmm. Wesley was 11 when he passed away, and it's hard to think, I'm just going to say this is kind of where I'm at right now with the podcast. And I don't ever want to take away. I do need to preface this with saying I have a lot of friends who are religious, family members who are religious. They go to church. My mom and my stepdad, we pray before meals. There was a woman last night before our show who asked us if she could pray for us. And I said, absolutely. I don't ever make anyone feel bad about it. And I know you're the same, right? But it's sort of this but we kind of want that same, respect in return, where if it's not something that feels authentic to us, or because what you went through changed a lot of that for you. And we talked a little bit about signs, and I had asked you about that with Wesley.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do you want to talk about that and what you think have kind of maybe been signs, like the number? I think that's one that really...
It's usually the number. His favorite number was 56. And I don't know, not even a month or two ago, my nephew bought his first vehicle, and the license plate, he was handed, he didn't ask for it or ask for a vanity plate or whatever. And it had Wesley's initials, WJZ. I don't believe it was in that order. I think it was Z first. But, and then the last digits were 56. So, yeah, he sent us a picture of that right away, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And that's what I love, too, is that your family recognizes that and just knows that things like that can really, it makes you feel good. It's almost like he's, I don't know. Because those are things, I thought about that, too, with my dad, that there were things that I wasn't going to get to experience with him. So that is, maybe this, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know this is
okay.
I know this is hard. So as a parent, one of the things you mentioned was your daughter was Zoe, and how you did have moments where you thought, was I there for her? Did I do enough for her? Right. And now that she's an adult, and obviously she has taken that event in her life and now turned it into a career, which I think is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So you have said that you have talked to her about that and stuff. And, have you gotten healing from having those conversations with her and thinking back to those moments of and being able to kind of release, for, in a way, maybe forgiving yourself for if you felt like a certain way. But again, this comes back to us being human, and you went through a really, really hard thing.
Yeah. And it's hard to remember everything because you don't really want to remember a lot of it. And so I feel like we did the best that we could with her, making sure she was taken care of, making sure because she was 10 at that time. And I have talked to her, not a lot. I don't know that when we talk about it, it goes into in-depth conversation, but I have brought it up, and I feel like she's done great. I mean, what she's doing now, she's awesome. I'm very proud of her, and she's way stronger than I ever was. But
yeah, you had said that. Yeah.
yeah. And
But that is a reflection of you, just so you know.
yeah, and her dad too. She has a good bit of him in her. But have I don't know. Sometimes memories fly in my brain, and I'm like, that was awful. Why did I do that? Or why didn't I think that through, you know? So I don't know. It just comes and goes with how I feel about how it went with her back then.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Like my friend Larry, he talked a lot about the emotions and the times where he felt just so incredibly angry. Because what ends up happening, what we do to ourselves when something awful happens to a child especially, is I start to think, you know, when things have happened in our family, I was like, what did I do to deserve this? Because I'm involved in this. This is my life, you know. When you become a parent, I don't think a lot of people go into, you know, marriage and having children lightly.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, it's not just you don't seem like the type of person that's just like, wow, you know. You seem very like focused, and you do give me a sense of strength. So just so you know, I talked to you a little bit about energies. You feel very like you've got an even keel about you. And again, your daughter, that's a reflection of you for sure. Like, yes, you and your husband. But I, you know, often wonder, like, what conversations would you say that you had that if anyone was listening, you know, and maybe they know someone that's going through something like this, it's not like there's a right or wrong thing to say, but what would you say to them as far as like, what's the best course of action, right? We talked about just showing up, but if they wanted to say something or do something, do you have any advice for someone who's either going through this or knows someone that's going through this?
Like in the midst of going through it?
It could be at any...
at the end where we are. You just have to... I mean, I just remember focusing on making sure he was feeling okay and doing what he wanted to do, and not trying not to pressure him to do things he didn't want to do, because, you know, we just wanted him to be as comfortable as he could be all the time, even when he was feeling great. We were very fortunate that we didn't have the people that were like saying bad things. Like I hear all the time about people, this person said this to me about whatever, you know, say he's neutropenic, which means real low counts, can't go out, people can't come over. If they do come over, you know, wash your hands before you come in the house. People having issues with that when they go to visit. And I'm like, you know what? We never had that, which I'm glad. But you can't be like that at all. You got to have respect for the family. And if you're going to go visit, if they don't want you to visit, don't take it personally. You know, things like that. Mm-hmm. You just have to play it by ear with whatever, you know, that family's going through. And if they ask for help and you can help, then do it. If you just want to help by whatever, do it. If they maybe turn you down or say not a good day, you just have to say, okay. Yeah. Don't stop trying to help.
Yeah.
But yeah,
because,
I mean, that's some advice, I guess.
You know, that's one of the biggest things too, is a lot of times people closest to you, they don't know how to handle the situation. So they can often like go off to the wayside and almost disappear a little bit, giving you space. Mm-hmm. I did hear that from another parent. I also heard that for them financially, they were having to go all over the country, last minute surgeries, and they were struggling financially. So some people had started GoFundMes. Mm-hmm. And she said, what people don't understand is when we would travel like to California or, you know, Chicago or Ohio or wherever, whatever hospital we had to go to see this new doctor, we both couldn't stay in the hospital overnight with him. Only one of us could. So we had to get a hotel room.
Yep.
And it would be so late at night that there would be no food. So we'd order food and we DoorDash it, and that costs money. And she said, when my son, who has cancer, wants boneless wings, I get my son boneless wings.
Yep.
Was there any big trip or anything that you could think of that maybe you want to talk about?
Well, we did get, so a year after he was diagnosed, he completed all his treatment, and he was clear, no evidence of disease. And we went through Make-A-Wish, and we took a trip to Hawaii as a family. So that was pretty fun. We have lots of pictures. We got scuba diving.
Oh, I love that.
Went to like the Pearl Harbor thing and the beach, of course, a zoo. So that was our last big family trip.
Yeah.
And then in that end of that summer, his scans came back with more cancer. So after that, it never stopped for 3 years.
Is that type of cancer common in children?
It is a pediatric cancer. How it's not that common? No, not as common as leukemia, ALL, AML, but osteosarcoma and Ewing sarcoma are two very similar. And most of the kids that we met did have those, other than, or maybe never mind. There's several, neuroblastoma, all kinds.
Okay. That's right. I think I did read something about that. That's like primarily a childhood cancer. You know, when you talked a lot about your doctor, for some reason I know I want to keep saying the wrong name.
Kurt Weiss.
Weiss. I think I kept wanting to say Wise because we're at the Butler Eagle, so I'm like, it's not Wise. Weiss. This episode is brought to you by R.W. McDonald & Sons Incorporated, Robert Stevens Jewelers. Thank you to our sponsors for your support on our first season of the Alter Eagle podcast. Be sure to click the link in bio for your discount for BetterHelp Therapy online. 10% off your first month. I've got some questions in my head, but I'm just like thinking,
So he, like I said, never treated Wesley. He was just there for diagnosis. And towards the end, when things kept coming and, there was one point where it was in his leg and we saw that it wasn't healed right. And I mentioned it to the x-ray tech or the doctor, and they were like, no, it's fine, blah, blah. And I made him, I'm like, I want you to look at his x-rays, So, and he didn't have great news for us. That was like a month before. I'm like, what do we do? And he's like, we just have to wait to see if there's something more. Mm-hmm. And, but after he passed away, no, we didn't really, aside from the initial, hey, this is what's happened, blah, 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 we haven't really kept in touch.
Yeah.
His orthopedic surgeon, that's the word I was looking for.
Yes.
We do keep in touch with here and there. And I have another friend whose son also I met through a friend. He had Ewing's and we gave her our orthopedic surgeon's name. And so she is still in touch with her. So we still kind of hear from her once in a while too.
Okay. Yeah.
Other than that, the child life specialist sometimes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I often wonder like how that, after Wesley passed away, what was your process of, that was your life.
Mm-hmm. What do you do?
Those people were people that you communicated with on a regular basis.
Yep. And
to me, it seems like it could be like a friendship in a way, not the friendship that you're asking for, wonderful people, but you're like, this is not the, but when you have that, it's like that consistency or that routine of talking to those people, and then all of a sudden not with losing him.
Yeah.
And how that can feel, because a lot of times when people first lose someone, they do want to sort of go into a bit of a hibernation because they need to like sit with their feelings and figure out what they're feeling, or that's just a normal human reaction.
Yeah.
Because I think it also is, imagining your life now without this person.
Right.
How comfortable are you talking about, after he passed and sort of what you went through? And then where did you get to a point where maybe you recognize like, okay, I've got to like get up? Or how quickly were you able to be like, I've got to keep?
Yeah. I don't know. I worked. My husband worked. I feel like I took a week off work, and that was it, because I just needed to get back to something and not sit at home all day. As far as having contact with the people at the hospitals, I haven't stepped foot in Children's Hospital since that day. Thank goodness Zoe never had to.
Yeah.
We've done other things with her, but not children's. I don't know. But we did have a point where we're like, okay, all these days and hours that were spent in the hospital, how do we fill that time? So there was a gym down the road, and we just started doing that, and met good friends there, and still do that.
Yeah.
It's a different gym now, but it's kind of our therapy for sure.
Do you feel like you and your husband were able to kind of do that together? Because sometimes, people go through grief in two totally different ways.
That is probably the only thing that we do the same as far as the grieving process, right? I feel like he doesn't talk that much. So we don't ever talk about it. Like, we talk about him, and things he did and things that reminded us of him. And we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do the gym together, and Zoe joined too, and she still does it wherever she is. And so, yeah, it's absolutely, I feel like it's something that saved us
for sure
from not just going down a hole and, being total hermits.
It's hard because I think that, it's that's kind of the message that I wanted to tell people, is that no matter how hard it is, you have to get up and keep living, almost because this happened.
Right.
And because you have your health and your heartbeat.
Right.
And you can feel guilty about it. And those are normal feelings. It's like letting someone who might be going through this to know, like, it's normal to feel guilty that you are actually going out and showing up to work a week later, or, going to the family reunion or to the Christmas party or whatever it is. It's normal to have to do those things because of this, moment that happened. And I think, right now, that's what I want to know is, I want to know about Wesley, like who he was, like what were his, like, was he funny? Was he, quirky? Like, I think little kids are just quirky anyway. And I love that.
He's
like,
very quirky.
They have their things, that they do. And just, I don't know. I saw the pictures you sent me, which I'm going to put into this video. But before we talk about the beads, I want to hear, I don't know, some stuff about Wesley.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, average crazy boy. Played baseball.
Yeah.
Started football. Started wrestling. All that happened right before he was diagnosed. But he loved baseball. His dad is a big hunter, so he did hunt a couple times. He went on some hunts with him, and had a dog. He loved the dog. He loved to dance and just act silly with his Boy Scout friends. And yeah, he was great. Funny, laughed all the time.
Yeah.
Really didn't deserve what he got, for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Not that anybody it does, but. No,
but that's, I mean, I'm trying not to every time I feel like I don't want to start crying because I feel like I don't have, I'm a very emotional person. So I'm like, I tried crying about this like before so it could not
get out of your system,
be the one to cry. But it is, it is very unfair.
Yep.
So I did ask you, like, if you ever like talk to him, or the thought of like seeing him again one day. And I believe that, yes, you will see him again one day. But like, you know, when you talk to him, like I talk to my dad, like I have moments where I definitely talk to my dad.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you feel as if you talk to him in very specific moments, or is it just like when he pops in your head and you're just like, hey buddy, like, hey budda, thinking about you.
Yeah.
You know?
Just when he pops in my head. Or if I'm doing something that reminds me of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be like, I see you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think too that like them popping into our heads maybe is a sign from them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, hey,
Yep.
love you, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
still, that kind of stuff. And it's hard for us because I think, you know, we all know that we're all going to die. And it's sort of that idea of like, it's scary because we don't know I don't know what's
Right.
next, you know? And again, this is something that you and I kind of talked about. And where it's this, like, I do have this feeling though, that whatever it is, that we'll be okay.
Yes.
You
That's what I
know,
was
that
just
we'll be
gonna
okay.
say.
And that he is okay. And like those moments are probably him just saying, hey mom, like
Yeah.
I'm okay. But
We're
it's
the ones that aren't okay. They're fine.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it's that why do we have to live with this feeling of not being okay without this person here?
Yeah.
It's the bigger picture, and that's what they say, that, you know, people who have had, you know, death experiences, which I wholeheartally believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
Amy Purdy is I think she's a 2-time Paralympic snowboarding. I think she got a bronze and a silver. She was 19 when she contracted a viral meningitis, went in her bloodstream. And what's crazy about the story is, like, a few weeks before that happened, a kid on the block had that same thing happen, and he had to have 2 of his legs amputated. And she said, I remembered being in the bathtub and looking at my legs and thinking, I don't know what I would do without my legs. And then she was a massage therapist at the time, and this guy had, ironically, she had this last minute client that wasn't supposed to be hers, and it was a long day, and she took this client, and he said to her at one point, have you passed on to the other side? And she said, what do you mean? And he said, have you experienced crossing over? He said, you're going to have an experience very soon. And he basically predicted. And she remembers when she was going into the surgery, she had like 5% chance of living. And the way that all happened was very, like, you know, her cousin came in and she was home alone. Her parents were gone. And so they called the parents who were away on vacation, said, you need to come back. Like, she's probably not going to survive. And she ended up in the surgery. And before she went in, the doctor said to her, Amy, I just want you to keep thinking about what it is you love about life. And just remember what it is that you love about life. And her mother made a point that anyone who came to the hospital during her whole recovery, they weren't allowed to come in the room and be negative. They weren't allowed to say anything negative. They weren't allowed to bring negative energy. They had to stay positive, that they were not allowed to go in there and say anything negative, because she had a slim chance of surviving. She had both of her legs amputated below the knee. She still has her knee joints, I'm pretty sure. Was told she'd never snowboard again. And she went on to create these bindings so she could snowboard. She was on Dancing with the Stars.
Okay.
So she's been a kind of an inspiration to me when it comes to stuff like that. But she talked about her experience and how she could see herself on the table. And she said, I remembered this light, and there was this like faint light. And she said, and I could see these figures in the distance, and I heard a voice. And they just said, you know, Amy, you have a choice. Like, you can come with us and be free of all of your pain, or you can stay. But the road ahead's going to be really hard, but there will be a reason why. You'll understand why you went on this path. And she said, and I remember what the doctor had said to me, and I just kept thinking about how I love the smell of fresh cut grass and my family, and like she kept thinking about all of these things. And she said, you know, I immediately just remembered just yelling, no, I don't want to go. I'm not ready to go. And then it was like she woke up and had been in a coma and all these things. And she's, alive today. And she said there are oftentimes people feel like they know that they get a choice. And, then there's oftentimes people will say like, it's not your time yet, but there's a lesson ahead. And then she said, and then there's people that know when they're going to go. Like they just know. And sorry to kind of go down that, but I do sort of think that like that to me does show us that there is like possibly another, plane of living, and that once we get there that we realize why all these things happened in our life.
Right.
And I often find myself thinking about things that I've gone through and like almost feeling like anxious to like understand like why, like understand why. And I think just talking to people, you did talk about Wesley's Warriors, which is, something that kind of originated from the Cure Search. So what is it? You said the local one that you guys do in the Shenandoah Valley, right? It's typically like beginning of May. So it's like a hike. And up till today or presently, you've raised like $300,000.
Yep.
So that specifically goes to Cure Search, but it's like your Wesley's Warriors is like the name of your like group, right?
Yeah.
What exactly is that money? Because it's very similar to Alex's Lemonade Foundation, right? So it's a similar organization that does. Do you want to talk a little bit about what they do and like?
They it's totally pediatric cancer research money. It all goes to sometimes projects that already exist that doctors are researching, or they'll have ideas that they want and they'll give them grants to continue their research. And they also, I can't think of what they call it, but they like fast line these things because a lot of times drugs will go to clinical trial or they'll sit in this dead area for a while before they get to clinical trial. And Cure Search can speed through that dead area and they get them to trial so they can get them to the kids who need them now.
Yes.
So, I mean, I always see the graphics they'll put up, 43 kids diagnosed a day. And it's always been 43. It's always been 43 since the day, since we got in this. And this year it was 42. And I was like, it's not bad, but one kid in 10 years, it still kind of stinks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was the first time I saw a change. It was 43 forever, and today it's 42. So 42 kids a day are diagnosed with cancer.
So having gone through this experience, what do you think? What do you think we have figured out when it comes to childhood cancer and
I don't know. As far as the medicine goes, it's terrible. I mean, one of the things is, 4% of all government research money goes to pediatric cancer. The rest is for adults. Kids get treatment with adult therapies, but at a lower dose, right? But that doesn't mean it's going to help just because you give a lower dose because they're smaller. It's just there's not enough research being done to help the kids. And that's the future, you know?
Yes.
65,
Absolutely.
70 years old, you're getting the best treatment. Some of that needs to be given to our kids.
Why is it only 4%?
I don't know. That's why you have Cure Search. That's why you have Alex's Lemonade stand, right? Because the government doesn't give enough.
I'd be interested to know like other countries and like kind of how they, what their statistics are, what their numbers are, what sort of, you hear all the time, especially with cancer, is, new treatments or whether it's a drug that they're researching or testing. And it really does come down to, I see stuff all the time popping up because I have that news, I have the news alerts on my phone. So headline comes on.
Yep.
And right now it's like some of these headlines, I'm like, I don't care about that.
Right.
Like, I actually care about the things that are going to, yes, children are the future. So when you think about it, it's like, how do we as humans, right? And this is like a larger conversation probably, because I think globally I don't think there ever will be like the world will ever be at peace. I just don't. We never have. There's never been, if we look back through history, and there's always been turmoil. And, but I do wonder when it comes to stuff like that, like how much are we as the United States, do we reach out to other countries and try to figure out like these things together? 4%?
Yeah.
I need to know now the understanding behind that. I really do. Like now I'm like, I need to talk to someone and say, can you explain to me why that is why is it that way?
I don't know. I'm not the one that can answer that for you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you told me that, because now I'm going to look into it and I'll let you know.
But we know, like, Cure Search is very transparent, and we know all our money that we've raised is going to help. So
yeah. So how is it for you now that it's been 9 years, right?
yeah, it'll be 10 years in March. I
What
can't believe it.
it's how quickly it goes. You know, it doesn't, you know, I just tell people like, and you can attest to this, that it doesn't get easier.
Not really. You can pretend it does, but because you got to live your life. But
so what do you do to take care of yourself on his birthday?
yeah,
On Christmas?
I don't work. I never work on his birthday or on the day he passed away. I'll do whatever I feel like doing that day. We've never really had any sort of, we need to do this on these days. We just kind of maybe have a toast, have a special dinner, have a cake sometimes, sing happy birthday.
What kind of cake did
But
he
there's
like?
he liked any kind of cake.
I love kids like that, where they're like, any cake.
Yeah, he's good. He was good with any cake.
Yeah.
He loved, well, I do know he loved snickerdoodle cookies. Those were his favorite cookie. So
Snickerdoodle. Okay. Yeah, that's a good cookie. That's a good cookie. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
every year, I think we should have like a tradition. But we don't have to. You know, we just think of him and celebrate him. Whether it's the same way every year or not, it doesn't matter.
But that is your tradition, you know, like
Yeah.
in a sense, like I'm the same. I think that, I mean, I know when you saw me, you're like, wow, you're all dressed up. I was like, oh yeah, I have an event later. So, it's kind of ridiculous how dressy my shoes are right now, though. I'll be honest. They're super,
the theme.
they're super dressy, but it goes with the theme of what I'm doing. So no one's going to see my shoes right now. That's not the point. The point is that, I'm also one of those people that I'm like, I don't need like a super fancy, like that's fine and all, but I'm down for just like doing something simple if it means there's like a meaning behind it. You know, the last Father's Day I spent with my dad before he passed away, we went and saw Jurassic Park when it came out. So it was the first Jurassic Park movie. So every year on Father's Day, I watch Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I still do that. It's been like 30 years and I still do that, you know? You know, there was a point too where I wouldn't, the anniversary of him passing on his birthday, I wouldn't work. I wouldn't do anything. And then it was 2019. It was the first time that I didn't wake up realizing what day it was. And I went to the studio to teach a class. I used to teach spin for a big company. I was living in San Diego at the time, and I was getting ready to teach class. And I actually had someone riding my bike that day, and I was standing there, and it was the middle of class, and there was just something about the room and the energy of the class, you know? And I just felt something like, and I looked at my computer and I saw the date. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. And then you felt guilty because you forgot. Or it just didn't hit you. Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Mm.
And I turned around and I looked at the room and I was like, you guys, for the first time in 20 some years, I didn't dread this day leading up to this day, to today. I was like, I didn't wake up this morning feeling like something was missing. I didn't wake up today feeling like remembering that day, like every moment of that day. For the first time in 20 some years, I said, and I think it's because of all of you.
Yeah.
It was just like this crazy moment. And I remember just feeling so overwhelmed. And I was overwhelmed with this like this joy. It was really strange.
Yeah.
It was very strange. And I think that, that's what children invoke. Like they invoke this, like when you talk about like, he was a typical little boy,
Yeah.
and like we know little boys, they can be crazy and wild. Like all of a sudden out of nowhere, you're just like, what is happening?
Yes.
Like, and thinking about that and how like he'll always be that, right? Like that will always be your memory of him.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a moment, that you like that just does put a smile on your face when you think about Wesley. I mean, obviously just him, period, right? Yes, obviously. But if there was like, if you were like, oh, if I have to pick like the top one.
Oh, jeez. I don't think I could. I have several.
Okay, well, give us a few.
Dancing. He dances. I just watched the video the other day that I'd forgotten about. It popped up on my computer that he was dancing on the deck. I was going to share it with my husband, and I forgot about it. I'll have to do that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, he was just goofy. And
Yeah.
I don't know. He loved us. I know that, too.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. And he really was a warrior because he showed me, I have the picture that I'm going to put in this, but the photo of him with the beads and what they represent. Will you talk about that?
Yeah. Called Beads of Courage, and it's a program through children's hospitals that kids, any procedures, anything they do, if they have surgery, if they get blood drawn, if they stay the night, if they had a visit from PT, if anything, they get a different bead. Different colors meant different things. So we had charts that we would keep up. Child Life takes care of it. You give them your chart. They bring you all your beads. You just put them all on a string, and yeah, his string is pretty long for 4 years of things. So
yeah. I do like the significance behind like the different colors too of that, because it's actually a really beautiful thing that he has. That's okay. I mean,
one of them that sticks out in my brain is a face of a kid, and they were bald, and anytime they lost it, because there were several times his hair came back and then he was back in, he lost. So anytime he had hair loss, he would get this face. So he has a few of those. Just
focus on like how beautiful he was and like how beautiful his life was and like how lucky you are to like be his mom and have had him and seen how strong he was. And especially when we talk about children, like we talked about this a little bit, there's a lot of kids out there that like don't have parents, so he was like so lucky to have parents who were like there for him and who still are. I mean, I understand people like will fall off the wayside with certain things, but like I said to you yesterday, especially with this, like, you want to do this ultimate hike next year, girl, I'll do it with you. You just let me know the date. You have my phone number. You have my email. I was like, I'll do that. Like, let's do that, because it's sort of like we meet people for a reason. I think meeting people through this, like my goal with this is to, once I have time to actually do it, is to sit down and go back through everyone I've had on so far and like reach out to them and say, hey, you have time for like a 15-minute call? Like, let's chat or let's meet for coffee or let's, I want to just see how you are, where you are, what's going on. Because I do believe in that. If you were to, look at this, $300,000, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. It doesn't take away, like if you could give someone that money and we would, right?
Right.
But that's just not life. That's not the reality of the situation.
It's unfair, but it's just something that happened to us. And you just have to keep going. You can't stop living your life, especially when you have other people in it, like our daughter. You can't feel guilty, even though you will. And you just keep moving forward and tell everyone you love them that you do.
I would really love for everyone to check out Cure Search. If anyone that's listening feels free to donate, I always say even $10, $20,
right.
it all adds up, right? Because, when we're talking about this, I'd like to know more. And my goal here is to hopefully talk to a doctor or someone who's in this field to say so when it comes to cancer research, what are you doing? What do they do? How, you go into work and you're like, okay, I have to try and figure out a whole new, way of how you could change people's lives. Right. And what that entails. It's thinking about when I got involved with Alex's Lemonade, it was the month of September, and I'm thinking about, for you, it's every day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I know how overwhelming that can be to have something that's just constant every day, right? Thinking about it. And I guess I was really hoping that I wouldn't cry. So that didn't happen. It's just it really does come down to this whole idea of it really is just not fair.
Right. Stupid, we like to say.
Stupid. Yeah.
Stupid. Here's one thing I'll add, because you say beat it. It's not bad. That's what a lot of people say. But
no, this is what I want. I want you to,
We have conversations a lot about how they talk about it when people are battling cancer and they lost their fight and things like that. And it's no. They didn't lose their fight. They didn't have a choice. People say that they're such a fighter, they're such a fighter. Yeah, they're a strong person and they're healthy, so they're able to fight this. But if cancer is going to get you, it's going to get you. It's not like you've been beaten, though.
Yeah.
He didn't go out of this world having felt that he lost,
Yeah.
He did the best he could. We did the best we could.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you.
Someone else had other plans.
Yeah, we could dig into that if you want to stay another, but no, I thank you for that, because I do think that that's something that with other topics that I've covered, people will say that's not the case. We need to change the way that we're talking about it. So
it makes them seem like a loser, not weak. They lost their battle. No, they didn't lose their life was taken from them. But
we can do everything that we can, right, with what we're given. So when you talked about him after he passed away, what would some of the obviously we have Wesley's Warriors,
Mm-hmm.
But were there times where you had to say to people no, he didn't lose, he fought?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
And hopefully people were receptive of that and understanding that. And I think it's for anyone listening, it's probably wise of us all, right, to just kind of remove that from our vocabulary.
Yes. Yep.
And we talk about that too with other people, even with suicide. There's a
Right.
lot of, that topic. It's mental illness. We're talking about mental illness. So it's good for people to know that. I think that you said from the beginning, you're we're going to beat this.
Yeah.
That was what you said.
Yeah,
You're we're going to beat this.
We had so through the hospital, you could set up a care page. There's another one now. I can't think of what it's called because it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But you can go, that's where I did all my updates for family, friends. I didn't do it on Facebook. I didn't do it on all that. Just to the people that I gave, links to. But but the page, I had to give it a name, and I called it Can't Beat Us. I just remembered that.
I like that.
Yep, Can't Beat Us.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's sort of this like point where
Can't beat us.
Yeah, right?
We're still here.
Yeah, you are. And I think that his spirit still is. I don't want that to be weird or obviously I've never met Wesley, you know, I don't want to speak out of, but I do think that, like we said, that they're the ones that are okay now. Like we're the ones that aren't okay. And this is teaching us a lesson, whatever that lesson might be, as unfair it is as it is. And that's just it. It's unfair. It's not a fair lesson. Couldn't
there have been a better way to teach me my lesson?
Well, yeah. Like if you could ask a question to whoever it is, right? And in the next life or the next, you know, whatever the next phase of this, you know, journey is, whatever the journey is, or is the journey like ended? Is that it? And then our spirits are just like, it's so crazy to me. It really is. Cause I really do. I think about this a lot. And I talk to people who have had overdoses and they don't know how they're still alive or have brain functioning.
Yeah.
You know, and now they're like working in this world and helping other people. And I mean, and your daughter, like attest to Zoe, who that's part of, you know, like that's something that it's like turning a tragedy into like a triumph, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's what she's doing for other people, for children.
Right.
And like you talk about how strong she is too. It's sort of this, and I'm sorry that I got so emotional. I feel so bad. You're like, are you okay? I'm like, I feel sad that you're sitting here across from me and this is the conversation that we're having. What I want, and we've talked about so many different things here, is I want for people to fight whenever they're faced with something like this. I want them to fight and know that they're not alone in it. Right. I want them to know that you're gonna have moments where you're gonna feel like you're not okay, but that you will be as okay as you can be.
Yeah. And
that finding a way to honor that person, like make that what it is, what it's turned into, you know, and you've done that. And I hope that you do continue to do that, you know, if you feel that that's what you need to do, or if it evolves into something else. I know that you talk about like, you did make one reference to like before cancer, after cancer. You said and you just used the abbreviations.
Yeah.
You said BC and AC, and how there's times where you think like you can't remember what it was like before that.
Yeah.
And then
I have a hard time.
You have a hard time. And
most of the things, like if I have to think back in memory about, I'll be like, okay, Wesley was still here, so it must have been this year, or it has, you know.
Yeah. So
that's how in my memory, how everything's filed anymore. AC.
Yeah. BC and AC.
Or even AD after he passed, you know. Well, he wasn't here for that, so it must have been after 2015.
Well, my hope for you is that you just continue to find, you know, moments of getting signs from Wesley. I know you said, and I feel this too, like where you're like, I probably don't get them as much as I wish, but just maybe opening yourself up to like, it's, you know, it will happen. Like when I need it, it will come to me. You will get to see him again.
Yeah.
I just thank you so much for sitting here, for letting me cry too.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No, yeah.
I don't get to talk about him that much because I feel like, not that people don't want to hear, but I feel like it makes people uncomfortable. And I should just say, I want to talk about him, I can talk about him. I need to talk about him. Right.
You know, I think too, like storytelling is so powerful. But thank you. I don't know. Just thank you. I know that this is like a hard thing to talk about, but you're very strong, and I really appreciate you coming to talk to me. I'm going to hug you. We're going to hug now. So, because we have to hug. Thank you for tuning in to Alter Eagle. Join me every Monday for a new episode, and be sure to click subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Follow us on Instagram at Alter Eagle Podcast. Until next time, stay safe, stay hopeful, stay kind.